get it further into the world. So I think it's the right move.
Yeah, and you think about it from an artist perspective, as any Google search they do for release strategy or how to put out my music or whatnot, guaranteed any page they click on, at the bottom there's an email subscriber list, and it's going to be trying to upsell them to a product. Every single one. So this is just a purely unfiltered like bridge between them and other artists, other managers, other labels, and their experiences, without, hey, download this 52-point checklist and then I'm going to upsell you to a $1,000 PR package. You know,
right. Well, it's not a digital product, right? You're still trying to. What I love about it is you're still a freelancer, and you love being a freelancer, and you love the product and the service you provide. You're just giving them extra stuff that's gonna like, you know, help them shout to the rooftops, like, hey, Nick is the man. Like, you want to go there for mastering, you know. It's like you've got people through the door, and they're going to continue coming back and spread the word. It's not about like, hey, here's my ebook about this or whatever, you know, my course.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. It's purely about that experience, and I also think of it from like a UX side of things. You know, where are my touch points? How do clients engage with the product of what they get, and they move through the motions of first inquiring with me to the point where they actually release the song. What is that life cycle, and what is their experience throughout it? Like, I meticulously even go over the way I label my folders, the way my emails are laid out, the information in my emails, trying to compact that down so it's not just compact for the sake of being it's small, but so that way it respects their time, and when they engage in any communication from me, you know, they're able to fluently move through the experience and feel happy, not confused. And that another reason why I did that video, if your mastering engineer did not provide these, they're not doing their job, is because there was a friction point in my chain where people were saying, oh, I got all these files back. What's what do I use for which one? So I'm like, okay, you know, that's another good impetus for doing that video. So yeah, it's about making that completely fluent, friction-free, comfortable, good experience.
Yeah, love it. This is kind of a weird tangent, a weird segue. But so you're talking about how you're filming your podcast. I know you're all about YouTube and the visual format. And I was telling you before we got on the call how I'm like, you know, everybody's going to YouTube. And I actually talked to another podcaster, Travis Ferentz, about this, and he's like, hopefully going to move his podcast partially onto YouTube. It's no longer a secret because he announced it on his podcast. And it's like, cool, I get it. But it would be a lot more work for a guy like me as an audio guy, and it's intimidating. And I keep telling people, if I had to do a video for this podcast, I would literally just stop doing the podcast because it would just be too much. I'd be overwhelmed. Tell me a bit about like the YouTube idea and the power of visuals, and is it worthwhile, and how do you make it work? You know, as like an audio guy,
that's actually a good question, because it's super difficult to make it work because it is a visual platform. So you're competing for people's attention with how well you can produce a video, not how well you can produce audio. Audio is a part of video. Of course. Fully respect that. But you're in a landscape where other YouTubers, especially in video and graphic design and most other things, like especially like anybody that can physically show something is at an advantage on YouTube because they can physically show it on the screen. You can't physically show audio, like it's the sound. So everything that accompanies it has to be meticulously thought out. But the reason why it works isn't necessarily because it's a video platform. It's because it's the second biggest search engine in the world. And that's why I've been investing time in it, and it's been paying dividends up to the tune of now I've got 3,000 views a month organically. That's just organic. I can sit on my ass, not produce another video, and I know I'll have 3,000 eyes on me every month on YouTube. To me, that's a pretty good thing to have in my back pocket. And the reason why is because I produce a video like I produce a video, how much should mixing engineers charge? or how much do mixing engineers charge? And I list all the different tiers. And now that ranks in Google search results every time somebody Googles that and somebody goes watch that video, they see me talking about different rates of mixing engineers. So in that sense, that's where the dividend pays. It's a search engine.
Yeah.
If you have searchable titles, it works. The thing that you have to be conscious of, though, it is still a video platform. So when putting your videos together, remember, you're producing a video. You're not just producing a screen with a DAW and you're talking about stuff. That can still be valuable, but you have to still be conscious of the fact people are going to be looking at a screen, and not only their ears need to be attached to what you're doing, their eyes have to be also.
Man, I totally get that. Just sounds like so much work. How do you confront all that work? How do you get over that hump or that fear or that, the friction of being an audio guy?
It's a learning process. Like, one thing I've just sort of like come to terms with for myself is I just edit everything in Final Cut. Even the audio, I'll do everything in Final Cut.
Yeah.
Go back to basic principles, basic EQ, basic compression. You can add VST plugins in Final Cut. You shouldn't be too stressed about it. So that way, anything you're doing audio also matches up with the video. You can cut the video. You can export the audio separately when you need to. And the other thing, the visual side of it was creating it. I struggled with it for a long time because I was very stubborn, and I'm like, I'm just going to shoot this on my iPhone and edit it. And iPhones are good, but they only get you so far. Once I bit the bullet to actually buy, like you can see now, the camera I'm using, a Canon M50. Once I actually bit the bullet to set up my camera and decent lighting, it helps a lot. So that way, you can frame yourself in the video. You can go out, shoot B-roll for videos and make it frictionless in that sense. But visual planning is also, what I like to do? It's I don't know if it's technically what video people do or film people do, but what I do is I make the opacity of the video 0. So the A-roll where I'm talking, I'll make it 0. And then I'll play it back. And as I play it back, I'll close my eyes and just press and just drop markers where I feel there'd be necessary visual aid to help me tell that part of the video. So whether it be like I'll drop a marker for a certain section of a manual, or I'll drop a marker where I think a certain clip from somebody else's video would be really good to put there to help get the point across. And I'll do that so that way I'll create a B-roll segment off a blind A-roll. So that way the B-roll accompanies the audio in a nice way. And I don't do that on every video, but the videos I do it with it. I feel really confident in putting them out and happy in putting them out because I know that, I've got good B-roll accompanying the audio. I've got good A-roll, which highlights my main points. And yeah, as I said, no video expert. It's like really chop shop sort of stuff that I'm doing, but
no, they come out real good. How often are you releasing videos, and how long does it take you to put out, like, the top to bottom, a video on YouTube, let's say?
The production of one video from concept to research to script to film to edit to put out, maybe 2 hours max.
That's not so bad.
In terms of editing and hotkeys and all that sort of stuff, I listen to everything in 2 times or 4 times speed, so I'm saving my editing time.
I thought I was fast editing this podcast at like 1.4,
Yeah. So yeah, thereabouts. In terms of how often I put it out, I really have to be deeply ingrained in the process of the video to feel motivated to work on it and to put it out. Because for every idea I put out, there's probably another 10 which I scrapped. And those are ones that I researched, started putting scripts together, started thinking about and compartmentalizing. Yeah, so yeah, like I don't know how often I put them out, maybe an average of once a week, once every 2 weeks. Sometimes I'll do 2 in a week. I don't know. It's just sort of like I have to really have a flow state for it where I'm feeling confident in the content and I'm like, I really feel like I went thorough on this to put it out.
Yeah, totally. Well, so my pushback against video and for audio, which I think I may have mentioned to you in the past, is, I really think that when somebody downloads a podcast, like they're really listening all the way through and fully engaged. I feel like that number of a view count on YouTube is not the same as a download count on a podcast because I just from personal experience, when I'm on YouTube, I got other tabs open, I've got other things going on that just distract me because my eyes are I need to keep my eyes on the screen, right? and your eyes are what distract you the most. And when I'm listening to a podcast, I'm usually doing dishes or I'm walking or I'm driving or something that when I'm listening to a podcast, I'm just fully engaged in the podcast, listening and paying attention. And I do think that there's a reason why I kind of believe in audio as like a format, because I feel like it really is the best way to, especially if you're like learning stuff, to really like focus. I do think it's the best. And although YouTube is amazing, like I don't think that the retention of attention is as high. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, that's fair enough. I can respect that. I really don't have anything to add to that, to be honest. I like, in terms of average watch time on the videos I'm putting out, I'm getting about 50%. So of every view, I know that on average people are watching half of it.
That's cool.
I don't know if that's a good or bad thing.
I think that's pretty good. I would imagine that's pretty good.
I would hope that's good. It may be able to be better. That's not the point. I think audio is I agree with you that it's an interesting format. My thinking is that's your experience, and my experience is, as an audio guy, I just don't have an hour in my day to listen to a podcast. I just absolutely do not. I might have 20 minutes on the drive to the studio if I'm lucky, and I know I did listen to Carl's podcast when he released his that way. What I did was I listened to it on the way to the gym and kept listening to it at the gym, and I rarely listen to podcasts at the gym, but that's because I really wanted to hear what he had to say on the podcast. But otherwise, my ears are occupied the whole day in sessions. So I just don't have, I just can't get around to listen to podcasts.
Do you take time to watch videos on YouTube though?
Yes, and I'll explain why.
Yeah.
Because number one, they're much shorter format, and number two, the only time I'm watching YouTube videos is when I'm eating lunch on my lunch break.
Got it.
So I'm like, I've got the laptop in front of me, I've got my rice and fish, I'm eating, I'm watching, I'm eating, I'm watching, looking at the time's up, okay, wrap it up, let's get back to work.
Yeah, I totally get it. Different lifestyles, different vibes. Yeah. Well, the honest truth is, like, even though I pushed back against you with like the video in terms of like, I do think I love audio, but there is what to be said about YouTube just being so organic and like being able to, get to other videos through videos and, with the algorithms and obviously the search engine, like you mentioned, it's the second biggest search engine, which is owned by the biggest search engine. So yeah, there's definitely a lacking in that department when it comes to podcasts. So I think it's much harder to grow a podcast because of that than like, let's say, a YouTube channel. I think you really have to like pay money to get a podcast in front of ears versus YouTube, which could really be organic. Like you were saying, like even with your channel, it's really organic. So there's definitely what to be done there, I think, in that department.
Yeah, I agree. And I think the SEO is just so worth it. The other thing with the podcast you could always do to increase SEO, do you republish the podcast episodes on your website as well?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's
But
continue.
Meaning, do I transcribe them or do I just like, embed them on my website?
Embed them on the website, but also leave information in the bio and the data and key markers about topics you talk about.
Totally.
So let's say you did an episode with Carl about him pushing artists' releases. So like you could leave chapter markers in the description where it says how to push your release. And then when anybody searches on Google how to push your release or release strategy podcast, it will systemize that into the SEO and rank your link higher up. So that's an interesting way to go about it. Because I do that with all my YouTube videos. I put them on my website as well, and put show notes and things underneath it, and redo the URL slug so it's more keyword rich, and that way when people search certain things, it just helps give a little bit of juice in the SEO side.
Yeah, interesting. There's definitely that's definitely something that's worth exploring for me, and I could probably learn a lot more and do a lot better than I am doing. But I am embedding it, so it's a start. I guess. So tell me a bit about like your bit mastering. Like how's it been? Like has the pandemic helped your business, hurt your business? Are you doing more, doing less? Like what are you still mixing? What does your work look like these days?
Always doing more. Just smashed the last quarter, biggest quarter ever in the history of the studio. So it's like it's constantly getting busier. Mixing is like a secret underground service for the studio. Even though it's Panorama Mixing and Mastering, it's like most people assume I only do mastering, and then there's a small select group of people who mix with me and then spread the word like slowly. It's not something I've ever really pushed. But again, that's doing well. Mastering's blowing up, and yeah, it's really funny, the mixing side of it, because I never intended it for it to be a large part of the business, and it's just year after year went from like doing 4 records to doing 10 to doing 12, now to the point where I'm doing 60 to 70 mixes a year, which it's
Oh my
like
gosh,
and
that's
that's
a lot.
like and that's not with me like hard at it, pushing it like I do with